Greetings! Anton here. Hope you're all doing well. We've got an exciting video for you this week. A little bit of a talky one, but something that folks have been asking about a whole bunch, which is what is up with H3 for 2019. So today we're going to be doing a roadmap video. So to start off, let me just sort of break down our sort of sections that we're going to be covering. We're going to be covering gun stuffs, we're going to be covering game mode stuffs, we're going to be covering platform stuffs, and we're going to be covering other boring but important stuffs. So yeah, so let's go ahead and jump first into the gun stuff, as I'm sure that's what a majority of you are probably most curious about. Just real quickly beforehand, though, I want to apologize if my voice sounds really gravelly today or if I seem a little low energy. I'm on like day 7 of a really terrible cold that I've been trying to get over this past week. So hopefully we can get through this whole thing without too many coughing fits. Cool. So gun stuff. So for 2019, there's going to be a bit of a shift in focus in terms of the firearm collection in H3. Last year, at the beginning of the year, I had basically set a sort of personal challenge to myself, which was to get the game up to 250 unique firearms before the end of the year. And we did that, and we actually blew past it, which was awesome. But now that we've done that, and there's at this point, I know there's every single one of you watching this probably has at least one firearm that you know of that isn't in the game that you would love. But instead of just sort of continuing to churn for volume at this point, I want to sort of go back and start working on the categories of sort of firearm that there isn't one of in the game at all. Things that are more labor intensive from a code and design standpoint to bring new types of functionality in. Yeah, I've got a few different types lined up, and I'm happy to confirm a few right now that I know will make a number of you quite happy. So first off, I want to do a flintlock. I haven't been able to go fire one just yet, but I actually remembered that an old friend of mine is actually pretty much an expert on them. He's done Revolutionary War recreation stuff for many years. On the in another country at the moment, so I can't go shooting with him on it, but hopefully he can hook me up with someone or someplace I can go to do so. But I want to really simulate and get all of the little steps of it. I don't want to just have a flintlock that you crack back, load simply, and fire. I want to have it so the flints actually wear out and you have to replace them. And I want to make it so that all of the failure states, sort of incorrect operational order on the flintlock, are represented. So you'll be able to double load it, you'll be able to have you'll be able to accidentally set off the flash pan or have it not go off because your flint's worn out, hang fires, that sort of thing. I've been sort of building a chart and a matrix for all of the different things, and I want to make sure that each of the pieces cross-interact with other existing systems in the game, like things being able to be lit on fire and such. So yeah, so flintlocks are happening this year. I have relented a bit. Especially with how much fun the sort of impaling systems have been with the melee objects, I think I'm gonna do a crossbow of some sort with an impaling projectile. I haven't decided what type. It's probably not going to just be a regular, boring sport crossbow. It's probably going to be something a little more exotic or on-brand or cool. I've got a couple ideas, but that's going to go in there because one of the late additions this year that I had the most fun with was actually the pencil. That's in the proving ground, throwing them and stabbing with them. So I think doing a weapon that basically shoots that would be super fun. Cool. I'd like to get a cap and ball revolver in. So like separate percussion caps, loading individual balls and powder in, and actually having to use, I think it's a tamper, I need to do my research clearly for them. But yeah, so stuff that basically has more involved, longer, interesting reloading processes is probably going to be a good chunk of my focus in terms of new firearms this year, and stuff that fires at new types of projectiles, or or just basically requires a different skill set from the player. I'd like to do a traditional mortar this year, and probably figure out how to deliver the incorrect information to the user about figuring out, okay, it's at this angle, which means it's going to be at this distance, probably giving the user a sort of range finder for them to dial that in and such. I also want to do some sci-fi weapons this year. I wouldn't say that I'm going to do them in a 100% sort of realistic way, but I would definitely put them in the like hard sci-fi-ish category of things. Like I want the laser pistol to actually function like a laser pistol, and that it would require sort of sustained beam hit, reflects off of certain materials, whereas burns through other types of materials, stuff like that. Actually, I already have a model for that one that's pretty sweet. And Patrick, who's done, firearms and sounds for the game, has also modeled a really cool sort of like pulse, like PPG kind of pistol. Fires like a tiny slug that's accelerated ridiculously fast, so it sort of becomes a plasma bolt and then evaporates after a short distance. So what I want to basically do with these sorts of sci-fi weapons is instead of making all of these exceptions, feed them into the ballistic system in one way or another, and see how much interesting, nuanced behavior I can get. Once again, to sort of like add dimensions and axes to the game's sort of loadout, so that you get these interesting, weird situational weapons that are powerful in one way, but have some sort of interesting trade-off. The way the 2019 Detective Special is like ridiculously powerful, but if you don't keep pulling its heat sinks out, it's going to overheat, and then you're just going to frag its accuracy. Cool. I also want to try to do a few of the things that I've said in the past were on the like hard and a pain in the ass, but not impossible, like underbarrel attachments. So this year I'm finally going to get probably an M203 and like a Master Key style shotgun, like an underbarrel shotgun of some kind in there. Is going to be a pain in the butt for a host of reasons, but I'm going to do it. And then lastly, with the gun stuff, I want to clean up a couple of the existing systems related to types and some of the features to just make them cleaner and a little more extensible. So I need to change the way that muzzle effects function, both so that I can load resources a little more intelligently, but also be able to have like various muzzle like compensators and muzzle brakes and things, because those would actually have different sort of like gas ejection and muzzle fire based upon their shape. And right now that's like an X times, well, like how powerful is the cartridge and how much muzzle fire would it normally have times what shape is the muzzle device. I need to actually make a reactive system, whereas right now all of the firearms just have their muzzle effects sort of hard coded into them. So I need to fix that to be able to enable that. And of course, and I'm aiming for Q1 to bring this back, the vault will finally come back. It was disabled when I did some changes to the way attachments attached to firearms to fix like the M249, how you can put a like a red dot on top and open the top and the attachment moves with it. By making that work, I broke the way that attachments are serialized and deserialized, and I still have not figured out what is going on. So there might be another bug related to attachments that's causing it. But yeah, I'm finally going to sit down and figure that out now that I'm no longer racing to get like a dozen firearms into the game every month. And so that just about does it for gun stuffs. Now, this isn't to say there aren't going to still be, drip feeds of of normal guns throughout the month, throughout the year, but it's not going to be I'm not trying to massively grow the collection anymore. I'm much more interested in a smaller number of more interestingly new things. I've in fact got a backlog of like weird and idiosyncratic firearms from the 612 to the Pancor jackhammer, stuff that needs really bespoke code to function that I can't just extend off of a base type. But doing that is pretty time consuming. It's the difference between it taking like a day or a couple days to implement a gun to it taking weeks. So, but that's where I want to take it, just because, you know, new challenges and new content types. So moving on to game mode stuffs. So there are several modes in the game, Rotwieners, the Breaching Scene, and Take and Hold, that all orbit around a central thing that I need to continue my work on, that I've spent a little time away from and done a lot of work in my sort of journal, watching GDC talks, reading about different AI strategies and things like that, which is the SOSIGs and making them work more interestingly in various tactical situations. And I'm going to end up doing a more detailed video in the future that's just about what I intend to do with them to make them work better in some of these modes and open up new types of play. But the gist of it basically is that right now they have a very static engagement pattern loop, which is between sort of like, I have a target, I don't have a target, and they cycle between several types of behaviors with a bunch of sort of, with several asynchronous loops of their behavior of sort of target recognition, sorting based on threat, things like that. But right now they do two things that a lot of people find less suboptimal, which is that they don't take, they're a little too suicidal in terms of their cover usage, whereas they should probably prioritize being in cover a bit more. And they tend to just bum rush an enemy if they have just acquired a new target. And so my goals are to work on that and then to actually add another meta layer that allows them to function a little more like a team sort of thing, especially in cases like the Breaching Scene. The goal basically being that if there's, say, a group of agents that have been assigned to defend or guard an area, and say a gunshot plays and they all get spooked, one member of that squad will be assigned to investigate that sound, where the others will simply be on guard looking in the direction of where it came, which should hopefully make playing in small scenes like the Breaching Scene more enjoyable. And in terms of the Breaching Scene, once I get that working, one of the things that I really want to do this year is to make at least one more house for sort of playing in that way. Probably have another one or two stories, multiple ingress points, probably a balcony that can really wrap around. Something that, instead of having just like one or two primary ways to come in, has something like 6 or 7, and that is set up specifically, because the current Breaching Scene is very old and predates even any sort of tall format agent in the game. Having a scene that just has a dimension set that works a little bit better for the SOSIGs, has some slightly more interesting cover opportunities, etc. In terms of Return of the Rotwieners, I have all of the sort of voice content and most of the quest logic to basically finish that mode. But I still have to do some layout of the final areas of it, add a couple more enemy types, and I'm still figuring out exactly how many pieces that I want to do that in. Whether it's something I want to develop is a sort of longer curve and just do a big release and ta-da, there it is, it's finished with all the extra areas and the ending, or whether I want to do a couple small sections. I'm still deciding. I might do a small module first, just to get the explosive systems in and warm back up to working on the mode, and then do the rest of it. But that's still to be determined. But either way, we're gonna be wrapping up that mode in the next couple months. And then in terms of Take and Hold, this one is more of a question mark, but the idea is, assuming that the SOSIG AI ends up getting to the place that I want it to, and have them work a little more dynamically and better in sort of corridor shooting situations, I would like to at least make it an option to play with them in the take and hold scene. So yeah, that is the goal with that. And I'm still and onto the part that I'm still not sure of. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I want to do with containment. In certain ways, it was a sort of failed like I learned a lot of interesting things from it, about level design, about exactly how complex of a level I could have going at once before there were performance issues, created some cool new enemy types for it, but its layout is kind of a mess, and it requires a bit more meditation for me to figure out exactly what I want to do with it. And I'm comfortable saying that with some of this stuff, I don't know. I tend to work best in process with a lot of these things, and hope that inspiration strikes. All right, so that is game mode stuff. Let us move on to platform stuff. So with platform stuff, well, I've been putting off a refactor that I've needed to do for a while related to input. As the game basically had a whole sort of like base settings for things, and then I welded on a bunch of exceptions to make things work better for the touch controllers, and now we have WMR platforms, and they've got both a touchpad and a joystick, and the Knuckles controllers are coming soon, and so it's at this point the code base of the game and the amount of stuff that's been thrown on the pile is sort of showing its age, which is a little stressful. So I am in the process of figuring out the most elegant way to basically expand some of that input mapping and mutability without having to go in and make subtle code changes absolutely everywhere, and or content changes. But the goal basically when everything is done is that there will be Knuckles support and objects will be posed correctly relative to those controllers. That WMR players should be able to use both joysticks and touchpads. So I'll be basically adding axis definitions that you will be able to, even in game, be like, I want this to be mapped to object interactions, I want this to be mapped to locomotion modes, and things like that, with a bunch of presets. So yeah, and should hopefully make it easier for us, especially because I know some of you, like, there are people who play on touch who would prefer to have sticky grips and things like that. So in a sense, I need to go in and remove a whole bunch of hard-coded behavior and generalize everything, just so that people have more freedom to play how they want without having to use like external input bindings. Cool. And now, the other boring but important stuff. So I need to clean up some stuff with the options panel. I've got a backlog of like little options and tweaks I have promised folk during the sort of busy holiday time, from being able to disable some of the physical latch stuff that fires a little too easily on collision, to disabling or being able to remap the Oculus touch snap turn, and things like that. I also really do need to finally address some of the new user onboarding, as it really over the holiday season really did make me realize how there are some core game concepts that really do need to be more forcefully demonstrated to the player. And then probably the worst thing that I need to work on, that I'm still figuring out exactly when I'm going to work on, is basically better asset segmentation. What does that mean? So the fact that the game grew to the scale that it has, with the content that's being preloaded, means that I basically have to load everything in this one big blob, which can fail on certain computers that don't have enough virtual memory set on their computer, or enough free space on their C drive, or enough RAM, etc. Because if I split that bundle out into a bunch of different pieces, because those assets all reference each other, I would end up duplicating in memory large parts of the of the game, and this is for a host of reasons. So what I'm going to be doing, probably slowly at first, is essentially breaking and abstracting some of the ways in which firearms and other objects load sub-assets, like their audio profiles, their muzzle effects, and things like that, to make it so that they can be isolated into smaller bundles, so that eventually there could be different loading options where, say, it doesn't necessarily load the entire firearm collection for you at runtime, but does it a little more dynamically, or you'll be able to set certain kinds of presets. Like, I just play with the modern stuff, don't load anything else, and things like that, both to sort of expand back a little bit the minimum spec the game requires, and just for a smoother experience for users who are not on the most modern or fastest computers. Man, that's gonna stink though. Anyway, so yeah, so that's the stuff that's on the sort of boring list that I'm sort of dreading, but needs to get done. But and then just to sort of wrap it up in terms of just this year to come in general does come with some life changes for me as well. In a big way, especially the second half of 2018 was, as many of you probably noticed, a little unhealthily workaholic for me. I had some sad family life events happen mid-year, and I sort of used working on H3 as a way to run away from all of that, which worked really well for getting a whole bunch of stuff done for about 6 or 7 months, but left me very, very depleted. And so in a big way, 2019 for me personally is going to be about having a little more of a healthy and sustainable work-life relationship, which means I'm probably not going to be churning out stuff quite at the breakneck pace that you are those of you who've been following along, especially from like September through December, have been used to. I need to slow down. It's also coming along with the fact that and I'm comfortable, I'm committed enough that I'm comfortable admitting this publicly, which is that I'm quitting nicotine. I smoked for about 10 years, vaped for another 8, and this is now day 6 without it. So whether on streams or on these videos for the next month or two, I might come across a little bit as a bit of a sleepy puppy. Even with my caffeine here, I don't know how you folks all stay awake. So, which will probably contribute to a little more leisurely pace of development this next month or so while I get resettled with things. But this is all to say I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I'm excited to work on this year. Looking forward to exploring some new territory with interactive objects, new systems, and frankly giving a little more love and polish to some modes in this game that really deserve it, and that I've in the past been a little, distractible and not sat down and done due diligence on stuff that I know some of you folks really like. So, well, that's the plan. Would love to know what you all think of that. And in terms of when our next update is, I'm probably going to be pushing a sort of a little bit of a bookkeeping, patch-oriented update next Friday. I've accrued a very, very long bug list, so that's probably going to be the focus in the next update or two. And then following that, I'll probably be reaching out to you folks in the community as I start polishing things. I'm probably going to do it in sort of blocks, where for a couple weeks I'm just going to work on tuning and improving things like handguns, or like, now it's time to work on lever actions and things like that. So I'll be looking to you folks in a major way to help me find and identify little stuff that's wrong, little stuff that can be improved as I work my way through things. This is going to be a year of refinement and a year of hopefully making sure that the promise of a number of the sort of systems and modes and stuff in this game are fulfilled and reach their potential. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. I think I'm going to return to bed rest, tea, and a good book. But I will see you all soon. Peace.